I didn't know whose blood was on my dress when I stumbled through the ballroom doors. The charity gala had been beautiful an hour ago, glittering chandeliers, champagne towers, women in silk and diamonds. I'd been serving drinks, one of 24 catering staff invisible to the wealthy guests who'd paid $10,000 a plate. My student loans weren't going to pay themselves, and the agency promised good money for events like these. Then the gunshots started. I'd frozen behind the bar, my hands full of empty glasses, as chaos erupted, screaming, more shots. The crystal glasses had shattered against marble when I dropped them, but no one noticed. Everyone was running, shoving toward exits that suddenly seemed too few and too far away. Someone grabbed my wrist, another server, eyes wild with terror, and yanked me toward the kitchen. We'd run through steam and stainless steel, past startled chefs, out a service exit into an alley that smelled like garbage and rain. That's where I'd lost her. One second she was ahead of me, the next she'd turned a corner and vanished into the maze of back streets behind the hotel. I'd called her name, but my voice was swallowed by sirens and the pounding of my own heartbeat. I'd run in the wrong direction. Now I stood in a different alley, somewhere in the warehouse district, completely lost. My phone was dead. My feet screamed in the cheap heels I'd been required to wear. The black catering dress clung to me, damp with sweat and something I didn't want to identify. I pressed my back against cold brick and tried to remember how to breathe. That's when I heard the voices. Male, low, speaking in Italian that I barely understood from my one semester of elective language credits. But I understood the tone cold, businesslike, final. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to move, to get away, to not see whatever was happening in the loading dock 30 feet ahead. But my legs wouldn't cooperate. Terror had locked my joints. Through a gap between dumpsters, I saw them. 5 men in dark suits. 4 standing in a semicircle. 1 kneeling in the center, hands bound behind his back, blood streaming from his nose, and 1 man standing apart from the others. Even in shadow, he commanded the space. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire year's tuition. Dark hair pushed back from a face that looked carved from marble, all sharp angles and controlled power. He wasn't holding a gun. He didn't need to. He said something in Italian, his voice quiet, almost gentle. The kneeling man started begging. The man in the expensive suit nodded once. The gunshot cracked through the air, and I couldn't stop the sound that escaped my throat, a tiny, broken gasp. 6 pairs of eyes turned toward my hiding place. I ran. Behind me, I heard shouting. Footsteps pounding against pavement. I kicked off my heels and ran harder, my stockinged feet slipping on wet concrete. Left turn, right turn. No idea where I was going. Just away, away, away. A hand caught my arm and spun me around. I screamed, "Silencio." The word was a command, not a request. The man holding me wasn't the one from the loading dock. This one was younger, broader, with a scar through his left eyebrow. But the gun in his other hand was very real. "Please," I whispered. "Please. I didn't see anything, I swear. I'll forget everything, please. Bring her." The voice came from behind my captor, and my blood turned to ice. The man from the loading dock stepped into the alley, his hands in his pockets, his expression utterly calm. Up close, he was devastating, dark eyes that missed nothing, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, and a presence that made the air feel thinner. He looked at me the way someone might look at an unexpected problem. "She saw," the scarred man said in English. I gathered. The boss's English was perfect, barely accented, which somehow made him more terrifying. He took 3 steps closer, studying me with the same cool assessment he'd probably used on the man who was now dead 30 yards away. "Who are you?" My mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Name," he said patiently. "Emma." It came out as a whisper. "Emma Clark. I'm a student. I was working the gala. I got lost. I didn't mean to see anything. I promise." "A student?" Something flickered in his expression, not quite amusement. "Of course you are." He pulled his phone from his pocket, pressed 1 button, and said something in rapid Italian. Then he looked at me again. "You have family in the city?" I shook my head. "I share an apartment with roommates. Please, they'll wonder where I am. People will look for me. No one saw you leave the hotel. he said quietly. In that chaos, you're just another face in the crowd. Another server who ran. Tell me, Emma Clark. He said my name like he was tasting it. Do you have somewhere else to be tonight? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. Except nothing about this was funny. I want to go home, I said, and hated how my voice shook. He studied me for another long moment. Then he nodded to the scarred man. Put her in the car. No, you have two options, the boss said, his voice still that terrible, patient calm. Come with me until I decide what to do with you. Or I solve the problem right here, right now. He didn't touch his gun. He didn't have to. Which would you prefer? I started crying. He sighed, a quiet sound of annoyance, and gestured again. The car. Don't make her walk. She's not wearing shoes. The scarred man holstered his gun and gripped my arm. Not quite bruising, but close enough. He walked me toward a black SUV parked at the mouth of the alley, its engine running, its windows tinted dark. I looked back once. The boss was following, his phone to his ear, still speaking Italian. His eyes met mine for just a second. I saw no mercy there, only calculation. The scarred man opened the back door and guided me inside, not gently, but not roughly either, as if I were a package being delivered. The leather seats were cold against my bare legs. The door shut with an expensive, final click. Through the tinted window, I watched the boss finish his call and slide into the front passenger seat. He didn't look back at me. Drive, he said. The SUV pulled away from the alley, away from the dead man in the loading dock, away from my normal life. I pressed myself into the corner of the seat and tried not to think about what happened to witnesses in Mafia movies. Tried not to remember that I'd just watched a man die. Tried not to notice the way the boss's shoulders filled his suit jacket, or the cold authority in his voice, or the fact that I was completely, utterly, at his mercy. The city lights blurred past the window. I had no idea where we were going. The mansion appeared through iron gates that opened without anyone touching them. I'd stopped crying somewhere during the 20-minute drive. Not because I felt better, but because my body had simply run out of tears. Now I just felt numb. Watching through the window as we pulled up a circular driveway to a house that looked like it belonged in a European country, not tucked away in the hills outside the city. 3 stories of pale stone, tall windows glowing with warm light, manicured gardens even in the near darkness. Beautiful. A prison was still a prison, no matter how pretty. The car stopped. The scarred man, I'd heard the boss call him Luca, opened my door and waited. When I didn't move fast enough, he reached in and took my arm again, pulling me out onto gravel that bit into my stockinged feet. Easy, the boss said from somewhere behind me. Luca's grip loosened slightly but didn't release. The front door opened as we approached, light spilling across the steps. A woman in her 50s stood in the entrance. Her silver hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing slacks and a cardigan that made her look like someone's kind aunt. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Dio mio, she breathed. Dante, what? Spare room. The man I now knew was named Dante said, brushing past her. Get her clean clothes, something to eat if she wants it. And Maria, he paused, looking back at the older woman. Lock her in. My stomach dropped. Maria's expression softened with something like pity, but she nodded. Come, Piccola. I didn't have much choice. Luca released me into Maria's care, and she led me through a foyer that could have swallowed my entire apartment, up a curved staircase with an iron railing, down a hallway lined with closed doors and expensive art I was too terrified to appreciate. She opened a door near the end. The room beyond was bigger than my bedroom at home, a 4-poster bed with white linens, a sitting area with velvet chairs, windows that I immediately knew would be locked, a door that probably led to a private bathroom. Beautiful. A cage. Sit, Maria said gently, guiding me toward the bed. Let me look at you. I sat because standing felt like too much work. Maria disappeared into the bathroom and returned with a warm, damp cloth. She knelt in front of me and carefully cleaned my feet, wiping away dirt and small cuts I hadn't felt until now. There was blood on the marble, she said quietly. At the gala. I saw the news. You were there? I nodded. And you saw something you shouldn't have. Another nod. She sighed and stood, taking the cloth with her. I'll bring clothes. Don't try the windows, they open only 2 inches, and there are men outside. Don't try the door after I leave. And Bambina. She looked at me with genuine concern. Don't make him angry. He is not cruel, but he is not patient with complications. What's he going to do to me? My voice came out hoarse. Maria's expression was answer enough. She didn't know either. Rest, she said. Someone will bring food. She left. The lock clicked with soft finality. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. They were shaking. Someone did bring food, Luca, silent and watchful, carrying a tray with soup and bread that smelled better than anything I'd eaten in weeks. He set it on the small table by the window and left without a word. The lock clicked again. I forced myself to eat, not because I was hungry, but because some practical part of my brain insisted I'd need strength. For what? I didn't know. Escaping a mansion guarded by armed men seemed impossible, but sitting here waiting to die seemed worse. The clothes Maria had promised arrived an hour later. Not delivered by Maria this time, but by a younger woman who introduced herself as Chiara. She brought pajamas, soft cotton pants, and a matching top, far nicer than anything I owned. Also a robe, slippers. Everything in my size, which meant someone had noticed, had assessed. Bathroom is through there, Chiara said, nodding toward the door I'd spotted earlier. Towels, toiletries, everything you need. If you require anything else, there's a phone by the bed. Dial 3. To call who? I asked. She smiled slightly. Whoever answers. Then she was gone too. Another click of the lock. I took the longest shower of my life, standing under water hot enough to turn my skin pink, trying to wash away the feeling of this night. The bathroom was marble and gold fixtures, stocked with products that probably cost more than my textbooks. I used them all, scrubbing my hair twice, my body 3 times, as if I could somehow erase the memory of gunshots and blood and those cold, dark eyes. When I finally emerged, wrapped in the robe, I found the tray had been cleared away while I was in the shower. No one had made a sound entering or leaving. I climbed into the bed because there was nowhere else to go. The sheets were Egyptian cotton or something equally absurd. I'd worked retail long enough to recognize quality. Soft, cool, the kind of comfortable that made me hate how good it felt. I didn't think I'd be able to sleep. I was wrong. I woke to daylight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For one blissful second, I thought I'd dreamed everything. Then I saw the room, the unfamiliar walls, the locked door, and the cup of coffee sitting on the bedside table, steam still rising. Someone had been in here. While I slept, my heart hammered against my ribs. I sat up slowly, reaching for the coffee with shaking hands. It was perfect cream and sugar, exactly how I liked it, which meant someone knew, had asked, had paid attention. That scared me more than almost anything else. A soft knock on the door made me jump, sloshing coffee onto the pristine white sheets. Emma, Dante's voice, muffled by wood but unmistakable. Are you decent? Was I? I looked down at the pajamas, pulled the robe tighter. Yes? The lock disengaged. The door opened. He stood in the doorway wearing different clothes than last night, dark slacks, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, no jacket. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd recently showered. Without the formal suit, he looked younger, maybe early 30s, still devastating, still dangerous. His eyes swept the room, landed on me, assessed the coffee stain on the sheets. Maria will change those, he said. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. He stepped into the room, and suddenly the space felt smaller. We need to talk. My hands tightened around the coffee cup. About what? About what happens next. He pulled one of the velvet chairs closer to the bed, and sat, relaxed, like we were having a normal conversation, like he hadn't murdered someone less than 12 hours ago. You saw something last night. Something that puts me in a difficult position. I waited, barely breathing. I have 3 options, he continued, his voice calm, almost conversational. Kill you, keep you here indefinitely, or find a reason to trust that you'll stay silent. I'll stay silent, I said immediately. I swear, I won't tell anyone. I'll forget everything. You won't forget. He said it with certainty. People don't forget watching someone die, but that doesn't mean you'll talk. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees, those dark eyes locked on mine. Tell me, Emma Clark, why should I believe you? I didn't have a good answer. He smiled slightly, but there was no warmth in it. That's what I thought. Please, I whispered. I have classes. People will notice I'm gone. My roommates. Your roommates think you stayed at your boyfriend's place. You texted them this morning. My blood went cold. I don't have a boyfriend. They don't know that. He stood, smoothing his shirt. You're staying here until I decide what to do with you. Cooperate, and this will be comfortable. Fight me, and it won't be. He walked toward the door, then paused. One more thing. I looked up at him. Don't leave this room without permission. Then he was gone, the lock clicking back into place. I sat in the beautiful bed, in the beautiful prison, holding my perfect cup of coffee, and wondered how long I had before he chose option 1. 3 days passed in the gilded cage. Maria brought meals. Chiara brought books when I asked for something to read. Luca stood outside my door at night. I could see his shadow under the gap, hear the occasional shift of his weight. During the day, someone else took his place. I never saw Dante. I should have been relieved. Instead, I was going quietly insane. The room was beautiful but suffocating. I'd memorized every piece of furniture, every brushstroke in the painting above the fireplace, every thread in the curtains. The windows did open exactly 2 inches, letting in air that smelled like roses and something else, jasmine maybe. Through the gap, I could see gardens, a stone path, the dark shapes of men patrolling the grounds. No escape. On the 3rd night, I couldn't sleep. I'd tried. Laid in bed for hours, watching moonlight creep across the ceiling, listening to the old house settle and creak. But my mind wouldn't stop racing. What was happening with my classes? My job? My life? Did anyone actually believe the fake text from my phone? How long could Dante keep me here before someone started asking real questions? And underneath all of it, the memory of gunshots, blood, those cold eyes deciding whether I lived or died. At 2 a.m, I gave up and went to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, stared at myself in the mirror. I looked pale, dark circles under my eyes, my blonde hair a tangled mess despite having nothing to do but shower and brush it. I looked like a prisoner, because that's what I was. Anger flared in my chest, hot and sudden and sharp. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd been running for my life, and I'd stumbled into something terrible by accident. And now I was being punished for it, locked away, isolated, treated like a problem instead of a person. The anger felt good, better than fear. I left the bathroom and tried the door, knowing it would be locked but needing to confirm I was still trapped. The handle didn't budge. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard nothing. Whoever was on guard tonight was silent. My eyes fell on the phone by the bed. Dial 3, Chiara had said. I picked up the receiver and pressed the button before I could think better of it. It rang once. Yes, a male voice, unfamiliar. I need to speak to Dante. Silence. Then, it's 2 a.m. I don't care. More silence. Hold. I waited, my heart hammering, half expecting someone to come upstairs and drag me back to bed like a child. Instead, after what felt like an eternity, the line clicked. This should be interesting. Dante's voice, rough with sleep. What's wrong? I want out of this room. No, I'm not asking for freedom, I said, gripping the phone tighter. I need to move, walk, do something other than stare at these walls, please. He was quiet for a long moment. I heard rustling, like he was sitting up. You realize it's the middle of the night. I can't sleep. Take melatonin. I'm not joking. My voice cracked despite my best effort. I feel like I'm suffocating. Just let me walk the hallway, with a guard, for 10 minutes, please. Another pause. Then a sigh. Stay there. The line went dead. I set the phone down, uncertain if I'd won or made everything worse. 5 minutes crawled by, then 10. I was starting to think he'd gone back to sleep when I heard the lock disengage. The door opened. Dante stood there wearing black sweatpants and nothing else. I immediately looked at the floor, my face burning. I'd seen shirtless men before at the gym, at the beach, in movies, but this felt different. Intimate. Wrong. The hallway light cast shadows across defined muscle, olive skin, a scattering of dark hair across his chest. He looked less like a mafia boss, and more like something dangerous that had just woken from a nap. 10 minutes. he said. "Stay next to me." He walked down the hallway without waiting to see if I followed. I did, my bare feet silent on hardwood floors, keeping a careful 3 feet of distance between us. The house was different at night, darker, quieter, somehow larger. We passed closed doors, descended the main staircase, crossed through a sitting room with furniture covered in shadow. He led me to a different wing, through double doors, into a library. I stopped in the doorway, momentarily forgetting why I was angry. The room was 2 stories tall, lined floor to ceiling with books. A spiral staircase led to a second-floor balcony, leather chairs clustered around a fireplace, a desk near the windows, papers scattered across its surface. It smelled like old paper and wood polish and something distinctly masculine. "You like to read," Dante said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." I stepped inside, drawn to the shelves. "How did you asked for books. You finished 3 novels in 2 days." He moved to the fireplace and crouched in front of it, adding logs from a brass holder, striking a match. Flame caught and spread, casting warm light. "You can come here, during the day, if you want." I stared at him. "Really?" "With supervision." He stood, brushing his hands off. "Maria will bring you. You can read. Use the desk if you need to study. Don't touch anything on the left side that's mine." He nodded toward the desk, where papers and a laptop sat in organized chaos. "Understand?" It wasn't freedom, but it was something. "Thank you," I said quietly. He looked at me then. Really looked, his dark eyes catching the firelight, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Then he turned away. "You're cold." I was. The library was warmer than the hallway, but I'd come down in just the thin pajamas, no robe. I wrapped my arms around myself. "I'm fine." He made a sound that might have been amusement and walked to one of the chairs, picking up something draped over the back. A shirt, dark gray, expensive looking, probably his. He held it out. "I don't need." "Take it." I took it, because arguing with him at 2 a.m. while he stood half-naked in his own library seemed unwise. The fabric was soft, still slightly warm from sitting near the fire. I pulled it on over my pajama top, and it swallowed me, the sleeves hanging past my hands, the hem reaching mid-thigh. It smelled like him, something clean and dark and expensive. I made the mistake of looking up. He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Something intense, focused, like I'd done something unexpected, and he was recalculating. "What?" I asked nervously. "Nothing." His jaw tightened slightly. 10 minutes is up. Go back to your room." "But..." Now, Emma, the use of my name, combined with that tone, made my feet move before my brain caught up. I walked past him, too aware of his presence, his size, the way the firelight caught the edges of his profile. At the library doors, I paused. "Can I keep the shirt?" "No." I looked back at him. He was still standing by the fire, hands in his pockets, watching me. "Give it back tomorrow," he said. "Maria will take you to the library after breakfast. You can return it then." I nodded and hurried out, retracing my steps through the dark house. No one stopped me. No one appeared. By the time I reached my room, I was shaking, not from cold this time. I climbed into bed, still wearing his shirt. And for the first time in 3 days, I slept. I woke to Maria, knocking gently on the door. "Buongiorno, Emma." "Breakfast in 15 minutes. I sat up, groggy and disoriented. Then I remembered the library, the shirt, the way Dante had looked at me. I glanced down, still wearing his shirt over my pajamas. I should change, return it folded and clean like he'd asked. That was the logical thing to do. Instead, I found myself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, studying my reflection. The shirt made me look smaller, younger. The dark gray fabric contrasted with my pale skin, my messy blonde hair. The sleeves covered my hands completely. It was absurd, and some rebellious part of me wanted to keep wearing it. I didn't understand the impulse. Dante was my captor. He'd killed someone. He held my life in his hands like it was nothing, a problem to solve or eliminate at his convenience. I should fear him, should do everything possible to stay invisible, compliant, forgettable, but I was so tired of being afraid, so tired of feeling helpless. This shirt was the first thing that had felt like mine in 3 days, even if it wasn't. Even if wearing it was a terrible idea. I left it on, added the robe over it for modesty, brushed my teeth, ran my fingers through my hair until it looked less like a bird's nest. Then I waited for Maria. She arrived right on time, her expression warm as always. "Come, Piccola. You have special privileges today," Dante said. "You could eat in the morning room instead of here." Her eyes dropped to the shirt visible under my robe. Something flickered across her face. "That is, you are wearing... Is that a problem?" I asked, more boldly than I felt. No problem." But she looked worried. "Come." She led me downstairs to a bright room with windows overlooking the gardens. A small table was set with pastries, fruit, coffee, orange juice. "Only one place setting. Eat," Maria said. "I'll return in 30 minutes to take you to the library. Yes?" I nodded, and she left. I ate slowly, watching birds flutter through the gardens outside, trying not to think about what I was doing. The coffee was perfect again. The pastries were fresh, flaky, probably made in-house by some chef I'd never see. Everything in this house was perfect. Everything except my situation. I was finishing my second croissant when I heard footsteps. Dante appeared in the doorway. He'd showered and dressed since last night, black slacks, a charcoal button-down with the sleeves rolled up, no tie. His hair was still damp at the edges. He looked polished, dangerous, completely in control. His eyes went directly to the shirt I was wearing. I watched his expression shift. Surprise, then something darker. "I thought," he said very quietly. "I told you to return that. You said Maria would take me to the library after breakfast." I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'll return it then." "You're wearing it." "Yes." He stepped into the room. The space suddenly felt smaller. "That wasn't a suggestion, Emma. I told you to give it back. And I will." I stood facing him across the table. "After breakfast." "Like you said." His jaw tightened. For a long moment, he just stared at me, and I saw something dangerous move behind his eyes. Not anger, exactly. Something more complicated. "Take it off." "No." The word hung in the air between us. I didn't know where the courage was coming from. Maybe I'd finally broken. Maybe being locked up for 3 days had snapped something inside me. Maybe I just needed to push back against something, anything, to remind myself I still existed as more than a problem to be solved. "Emma." He said my name, like a warning. "You don't want to test me right now." "Why?" The question came out before I could stop it. "What are you going to do? Lock me in my room?" "You already do that. Take away privileges?" "I don't have any. Kill me?" My voice wavered slightly. "If that's what you're going to do, just do it already. Stop pretending I have choices." Silence. Dante rounded the table slowly, deliberately. I forced myself to stand my ground even as instinct screamed to back away. He stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "You have choices," he said softly. "You're choosing, right now, to make this difficult. It's a shirt. It's my shirt. Then maybe you shouldn't have given it to me." His hand moved, and I flinched. I couldn't help it. But he didn't strike me. Instead, he reached out and caught the edge of the collar, his knuckles brushing my throat through the fabric. "Do you understand what you're doing?" His voice was low, controlled, but I heard the edge beneath it. Wearing my clothes, challenging me in my own house. "Do you think this is a game?" "I think I'm losing my mind," I said, hating how my voice shook. "I think you've kept me prisoner for 3 days, and I don't know if you're going to let me go or kill me, and I'm so scared all the time that I can barely think. So yes, I'm wearing your stupid shirt because it's the only thing that's made me feel like I have any control over anything." My eyes burned. "You can take it back if you want. Strip it off me. Lock me in my room for another 3 days. I can't stop you." His expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. His hand dropped from the collar. He stepped back. "Finish your breakfast," he said quietly. "Maria will take you to the library in 20 minutes. Then he left. I sank back into my chair, shaking. I'd expected him to yell, to drag me upstairs, to do something. Instead, he just walked away. I looked down at the shirt, my hands twisted in the 2 long sleeves. What had I just done? Maria returned exactly 20 minutes later, her expression carefully neutral. She didn't mention the shirt. Neither did I. She led me to the library, which looked different in daylight, sunlight streaming through tall windows, dust motes dancing in the air, the book's spines showing their colors. Beautiful. Ring if you need anything, Maria said, indicating the phone on the desk, the left side of the desk, which I'd been told not to touch. Someone will come. Thank you. She hesitated in the doorway. Emma, Bambina, be careful. Of what? Of pushing him. She looked genuinely concerned. Dante is not like other men. He is, when he cares about something, he controls it. When he doesn't, she trailed off. Just be careful. Then she was gone. I spent 2 hours reading, curled in one of the leather chairs, trying to lose myself in a mystery novel. But I couldn't focus. My mind kept returning to the morning room. The way Dante had looked at me, the way his hand had felt against my throat, separated only by thin cotton. I should change, take off his shirt, stop antagonizing the man who held my life in his hands. Instead, I pulled the sleeves down further over my hands and turned the page. Lunch arrived on a tray, Luca, silent as always, setting it on the small side table. He glanced at me, at the shirt, and his scarred eyebrow rose slightly. Boss wants to see you, he said. After you eat. My stomach dropped. Why? Didn't say. He moved toward the door. Someone will come get you. An hour later, Chiara appeared. Come with me. She led me through the house to a wing I hadn't seen before. More masculine, darker wood, leather furniture, expensive art that looked old and important. She stopped at a heavy door and knocked twice. Avanti, came Dante's voice from inside. Chiara opened the door and gestured for me to enter. The office beyond was exactly what I expected. Dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, windows overlooking the gardens. Dante sat behind the desk, papers spread in front of him, a laptop open, a glass of amber liquid at his elbow. He didn't look up when I entered. Sit, he said, nodding toward one of the chairs facing the desk. I sat, my heart hammering. He finished whatever he was reading, made a note in the margin, then closed the folder and set it aside. Only then did he look at me. His eyes went immediately to the shirt, still wearing it. His expression darkened. I warned you, he said softly. If I see you in my shirt again. He didn't finish the sentence. The air in the office felt thick, charged with something I didn't understand. What happens? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. If you see me in it again? Dante leaned back in his chair, studying me with those dark, unreadable eyes. I guess, he said quietly. We'll both find out. He didn't send me back to my room. Instead, Dante stood and walked to the windows, his back to me, hands in his pockets. The afternoon light caught the edge of his profile, all sharp angles and controlled tension. You've been here 4 days, he said, long enough for me to make inquiries. About you. My breath caught. What kind of inquiries? The thorough kind. He turned to face me. Emma Clark, 22 years old, English literature major, senior year, works 2 part-time jobs to cover tuition and rent. No criminal record, no connections to any families, mine or rival. You're exactly what you claim to be. He paused. Nobody. The word stung more than it should have. So you'll let me go, I said. I didn't say that. But if I'm nobody, if I'm not connected to anything, you're still a witness. He moved back to the desk but didn't sit, leaning against the edge instead. Closer now. The man you saw die? He was stealing from me, selling information to a rival family. His death sent a message. His eyes locked on mine. If word gets out that someone saw it happen, that someone can identify me, that message becomes complicated. I won't tell anyone. So, you keep saying... He tilted his head slightly. But how do I know? How do I trust that fear will keep you quiet when you're back in your normal life? Talking to friends, maybe drinking too much one night and letting something slip? I wouldn't. People make mistakes, Emma. They panic. They confess. They convince themselves that telling one person is safe. His voice dropped lower. I don't build my life on hope. I build it on certainty. Then what are you going to do? I was so tired of asking that question. Keep me here forever? I'm considering options. Which options? Instead of answering, he moved around the desk and pulled something from a drawer. A phone. My phone. He set it on the desk between us. I stared at it. You've had that this whole time? Of course. We've been sending texts. Posting on your social media. As far as anyone knows, you're staying with a new boyfriend you met at the gala. Very romantic. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Your roommates are envious. Horror crept up my spine. You've been impersonating me. Maintaining your cover. He pushed the phone closer. You have 17 missed calls from your mother. 5 from someone named Jessica. Multiple texts asking when you're coming back to classes. He paused. Your midterm is in 3 days. American romanticism. I felt sick. Here's what's going to happen, Dante continued, his voice matter of fact. You're going to stay here for another week. Maybe 2. Long enough for the investigation into the gala shooting to go cold, for attention to shift elsewhere. Then we'll discuss your future. My future, whether you leave, whether you stay, whether we find an arrangement that benefits us both. What arrangement? I asked. What could you possibly? I haven't decided yet. He straightened. In the meantime, you'll continue to have access to the library, the gardens, with supervision. You'll cooperate. You'll stop. His eyes dropped to the shirt again, testing my patience. It's just a shirt, I said again, but my voice was weaker now. No. He leaned down, bracing his hands on the arms of my chair, caging me in, close enough that I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, smell that clean, expensive scent that clung to him. It's not just a shirt. It's a choice. You wearing it, refusing to take it off, walking around my house marked with something of mine that's a choice. And choices have consequences. My heart was trying to break through my ribs. What consequences? He held my gaze for a long, heavy moment. Then he pushed away, standing. Go back to the library. Kiara will bring dinner in 2 hours. That's it? For now. He returned to his chair, opening his laptop like I'd already been dismissed. And Emma? I stood on shaking legs. Yes? Tomorrow morning you'll wear something else. It wasn't a request. I didn't sleep well that night, partly because my mind wouldn't stop replaying the conversation in his office the way he'd looked at me, the threat wrapped in that quiet voice, the proximity that had made my skin feel too hot, partly because I was wrestling with something I didn't want to name. I wasn't just afraid of Dante anymore. Some part of me, a part I desperately wanted to ignore, had felt something else when he'd leaned in close. Something that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the way his presence made the air feel electric. That was insane. Stockholm Syndrome, trauma response. I was inventing feelings for my captor because my brain was trying to cope with an impossible situation. That's what I told myself. At 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep and went to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, stared at myself in the mirror. I was still wearing his shirt. I should change. Should pick one of the pajama sets Maria had provided. Should stop pushing, stop testing, stop doing whatever this was. My hand went to the hem of the shirt, froze there. I thought about tomorrow morning, about Maria arriving with breakfast, about walking down to the library wearing something else, something neutral and safe, about Dante seeing me and knowing I'd obeyed. The rebellious part of me reared up again, sharp and defiant. No. I climbed back into bed, pulled the covers up, and left the shirt on. Morning came too fast. Maria knocked at 8, her usual cheerful greeting dying when she saw what I was wearing. Her eyes widened. She crossed herself. Dio mio, child. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's comfortable, I said, with more confidence than I felt. Emma. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Dante gave you an order. You cannot. He is not a man who tolerates defiance. Especially not. She gestured helplessly at the shirt. Not this. It's just clothing, Maria. No, it is not. She came closer, her voice dropping. In our world, these things have meaning. When a woman wears a man's clothes, when she marks herself with his scent, his property, it is a claim. And when she does it without permission, it is a challenge. My stomach flipped. I'm not claiming anything. This isn't about that. Then what is it about? I didn't have a good answer. Control. It's the only thing I have any control over. Maria's expression softened. Oh, Bambina, you have no control. Not here, not with him. The sooner you understand that, the safer you will be. But I didn't want to be safe. I wanted to feel like myself again. I'm wearing the shirt, I said quietly. Maria sighed. Then God help you. Come, breakfast is in the morning room. And Emma? She paused at the door. Dante is already downstairs. He was waiting in the morning room when I arrived, sitting at the table, coffee in hand, dressed in another perfectly tailored suit. He looked up when I entered, and I watched his expression shift from neutral to something darker. His eyes locked on the shirt, the same shirt, still wearing it. He set his coffee down very carefully. I gave you an instruction, he said quietly. I know, and you ignored it. Yes. The silence stretched thin and dangerous. Then Dante stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward me. He stopped close, too close, and looked down at me with those unreadable dark eyes. You want control? He asked softly. I couldn't find my voice. His hand came up, and I tensed, but he didn't touch me. Instead, he reached past me and pushed the door shut with a quiet click. All right, Emma, he said. Let's talk about control. My back hit the wall before I realized he'd moved. Not violently. Dante didn't grab me or shove me. He simply stepped forward, and I stepped back, and suddenly there was nowhere left to go. He braced one hand on the wall beside my head, caging me in. Do you know why I'm still letting you breathe? His voice was quiet, controlled, but I heard the edge beneath it. Why I haven't solved this problem the easy way. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Because you're an innocent. You didn't ask to see what you saw. You're not part of this world. And despite what you think of me, his eyes searched mine. I don't kill innocent people without reason. Then let me go, I whispered. I can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. His jaw tightened. So we're here. In this situation, where you're under my protection whether you want it or not, and I'm trying to keep you alive despite the risk you pose. I'm not trying to. You're testing me. He leaned closer, and I pressed harder against the wall, pushing boundaries, wearing my clothes like it doesn't mean anything, like you're not standing in my house, surrounded by men who answer to me, completely at my mercy. It's just a shirt, I said again, but it sounded weak even to me. No. His free hand came up, fingers catching the collar, not pulling, just holding. It's mine. And when you wear it, you're telling everyone in this house something. Whether you mean to or not. What am I telling them? His thumb brushed the hollow of my throat, just above the fabric. The touch was light, barely there, but it sent electricity racing down my spine. That you belong to me, he said quietly. My breath stopped. That's what they see, Dante continued, his eyes dark and intense. My shirt, my protection, my problem, mine. The last word came out rough. So when you refuse to take it off, when you keep wearing it after I've told you not to, you're not fighting for control, Emma. You're handing it over. I'm not, aren't you? His hand slid from the wall to cup my face, tilting my head back. His palm was warm, calloused, gentle. Tell me, why are you really still wearing this? I couldn't answer. Couldn't think past the feeling of his hand on my skin, his body close enough to feel the heat of him. Emma. My name on his lips sounded like a warning and a question all at once. What are you doing? I don't know, I admitted, and it was the truth. Something flickered in his expression. He stared at me for a long moment, his thumb tracing my cheekbone in a gesture that felt far too intimate. Then he stepped back, dropping his hands. Change, he said. Now, or I'll do it for you. He meant it. I could see it in the hard line of his mouth, the tension in his shoulders. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something warm and dangerous unfurl in my chest. No, I heard myself say. His eyes flashed. What did you just say? No. My voice was steadier now. If you want it back so badly, take it. I'm not going to make this easy for you anymore. For a second, I thought I'd pushed too far. Thought he might actually follow through on the threat. strip the shirt off me himself, remind me exactly how powerless I was here. Instead, he laughed. It was a dark sound, humorless, but genuine. He shook his head slowly. "You have no idea what you're starting," he said. Then he turned and walked out, leaving me alone in the morning room with my racing heart and the scent of his cologne still lingering in the air. I didn't see Dante for the rest of the day. Maria brought me lunch in the library, her expression worried but not disapproving. Chiara checked on me in the afternoon, asking if I needed anything. Luca stood guard outside the library doors, silent and watchful. No one mentioned the shirt, but I felt its weight differently now. Felt the way Maria's eyes lingered on it, the way Chiara's mouth tightened when she saw it, the way Luca's scarred eyebrow had risen slightly when I'd walked past. They all saw what Dante had said they saw. A claim. I told myself I'd take it off before dinner, would find something else to wear, something neutral. Would stop this game before it went somewhere I didn't understand. But when dinner time came, I was still wearing it. Dinner was brought to my room that night. Maria delivered it herself, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "Dante has business tonight," she said. "He won't be in the house. You'll stay in your room." "What kind of business?" She gave me a look that said I should know better than to ask. "The kind you don't want to know about. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone except me or Chiara. Understand?" I nodded. She hesitated at the door. "Emma, you are playing a dangerous game with a dangerous man. I don't know what you think will happen, but..." She sighed. "Just be careful. Per favore." After she left, I picked at the food without appetite. The house felt different with Dante gone emptier somehow, less charged. I found myself listening for sounds that never came. At midnight, I gave up pretending I'd sleep and went to the window. The 2 inches of opening let in cool night air that smelled like rain. Below, the gardens were dark except for scattered lights along the paths. I could see one of the guards making his rounds, a shadow moving between shadows. I wondered where Dante was, what he was doing, if he was thinking about me at all. The sound woke me hours later. A door closing, footsteps in the hallway. I sat up in bed, my heart already racing, listening. They stopped outside my room. For a long moment, nothing. Then the lock disengaged with a soft click. The door opened. Dante stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall light. Still wearing the suit from this morning, but different now, tie gone, collar open, jacket slung over his shoulder. He looked exhausted. And something else. Dangerous. "You're still wearing it," he said quietly. I pulled the covers up higher, suddenly very aware that I was in bed, wearing only his shirt and my pajama pants. "You told me to sleep in my room. I told you to change." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "This morning, this afternoon, tonight, I've told you multiple times." "I know. And yet..." He dropped his jacket over the chair and walked toward the bed. "Here you are. Still wearing my shirt, still defying me, still pushing." I didn't have a good response. He sat on the edge of the bed, not close enough to touch, but close enough to make my breath catch. His eyes were dark, shadowed, but I could feel the intensity of his focus. "Do you have any idea what kind of night I've had?" he asked quietly. "The things I've had to do? The decisions I've had to make?" No, he agreed. "You don't. You're here, safe in this room, wearing my clothes, playing games, while I'm out there holding my entire world together." He leaned closer. "So let me be very clear, Emma. I don't have the patience for this right now. Take it off. Why does it matter so much?" The question came out before I could stop it. "It's just a shirt. If you want it back, I'll give it back. But I don't understand why. Because every time I see you in it, I forget why keeping you alive is complicated." The confession came out rough, almost angry. "Every time I see you wearing something of mine, looking like you belong here, I forget that you're a problem. I forget that I should be figuring out how to let you go. I forget." He stopped himself. My heart was hammering. "Forget what?" "That you're not mine to keep," he said softly. The air between us felt electric, charged with something I didn't fully understand but felt deep in my chest. "Dante, tomorrow morning," he interrupted, standing. "You'll wear something else. This ends now." He walked to the door. "What if I don't?" I asked. He paused, his hand on the handle, his back to me. Then I'll stop being patient, he said quietly. And you won't like what happens next. He left. The lock clicked. I sat in the darkness, still wearing his shirt, and tried to understand what I was doing. Tried to understand why the thought of taking it off tomorrow felt like surrender. I wore it again the next morning. This time, it was a conscious choice. Not rebellion for rebellion's sake. Not some desperate grasp at control. I put on his shirt knowing exactly what I was doing, knowing what it might cost me. Maria took one look at me when she arrived with breakfast and pressed her lips together. She didn't say a word, just led me downstairs to the morning room in heavy silence. Dante was already there. He stood by the windows with his back to the door, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a phone to his ear. He was speaking low, rapid Italian. Something about shipments and schedules and someone named Marco who'd fucked up. He turned when we entered. His eyes found mine, dropped to the shirt. I watched his expression go carefully, dangerously blank. He said something sharp into the phone and hung up without waiting for a response. Set the phone on the windowsill with controlled precision. Maria, he said quietly, leave us. Maria hesitated. Dante. Vai? She went. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded very loud in the sudden silence. Dante didn't move from the window, didn't speak, just looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes. I forced myself to stand still, to not fidget, to meet his gaze. I gave you multiple warnings, he said finally, his voice dangerously calm. Multiple chances to stop this, to change, to choose differently. He took one step toward me, then another, and every single time, you've looked me in the eye and chosen defiance. I'm trying to understand why. Another step. Is this about control? About feeling like you have power in a situation where you have none? He stopped a few feet away. Or is this about something else? My mouth was dry. What else would it be about? You tell me, Emma. He tilted his head slightly. Because from where I'm standing, there are only two explanations. Either you're too naive to understand what you're doing, or you understand perfectly, and you're doing it anyway. I'm not naive. Then what are you? I didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know how to explain the tangle of fear and anger, and something else that I didn't want to name. Dante stepped closer. Close enough now that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Last chance, he said softly. Take it off. Right now. Walk away from this while you still can. My hands trembled at my sides. What if I don't want to walk away? Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. You don't know what you're asking for, he said. Maybe not. But I'm asking anyway. He stared at me for a long, heavy moment. I could see the war happening behind his eyes' control versus something else. The careful distance he'd maintained since the night I'd arrived. Cracking. Then his hand came up and caught the front of the shirt, twisting the fabric, pulling me closer. This is your last warning, he said, his voice rough. After this, there's no going back, no changing your mind, no pretending you didn't know what this meant. My heart was trying to break out of my chest. I understand. Do you? His other hand came up to frame my face, fingers sliding into my hair. Do you understand that if I stop seeing you as a problem and start seeing you as something else, everything changes? That I don't do anything halfway? That once you're mine, and I don't let go? The possessiveness in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it sent heat racing through my veins. I understand, I whispered. He made a sound low in his throat, frustration and surrender all at once. His forehead dropped to rest against mine, his breath warm against my lips. You're going to destroy me, he muttered. Then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. His mouth claimed mine with a hunger that stole my breath. One hand still fisted in the shirt, the other cradling my head. I gasped against his lips, and he deepened the kiss, coaxing my mouth open, tasting me like he'd been starving. I'd been kissed before. Awkward dates, college parties, rushed moments that had felt more obligatory than genuine. This was nothing like that. This was consuming. Dante kissed me like he was trying to prove a point, like he was marking territory, like he'd been holding himself back for days, and finally the leash had snapped. My hands came up to grip his shoulders, needing something to anchor me. He made another sound approval this time and pulled me closer. eliminating every inch of space between us. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "You wear this again," he said roughly, his thumb tracing my swollen bottom lip. "And you're telling me you're mine. Understand?" I nodded, unable to form words. "Say it. I need to hear you say it." "I understand," I managed. His eyes searched mine, looking for doubt, for hesitation. Whatever he saw there made his expression soften slightly. "You're sure?" he asked, quieter now. "Once we cross this line, Emma, I can't uncross it. I won't want to." "I'm sure." It was true. Somewhere in the last week, somewhere between fear and defiance and those stolen moments in his library, something had shifted. I didn't fully understand it. Didn't know if it was real or trauma or some twisted coping mechanism. But I was sure. Dante cupped my face in both hands, his thumbs stroking my cheekbones with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. "You're so fucking innocent," he murmured, almost to himself. "You have no idea what you do to me." Then he kissed me again, slower this time, thorough and claiming and absolutely devastating. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine again, his breathing unsteady. "We need rules," he said. I blinked. "Rules? If this is happening, if you're staying, if you're mine, we need boundaries. For your safety and mine." He pulled back slightly, his hands sliding down to grip my shoulders. "You don't leave the property without me. You don't talk about my business with anyone. You don't take unnecessary risks. Am I still a prisoner?" "No." His jaw tightened. "You're under my protection. There's a difference." "Which is?" "Prisoners want to leave. People under my protection know better." He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "I can't let you go, Emma. Not now. Not when rival families might learn about the witness from the gala. Not when keeping you close is the only way I can guarantee you stay alive. So I'm still trapped, just with better marketing." A slight smile curved his mouth. "If you want to think of it that way, how should I think of it?" "As choosing me." His expression turned serious. "Stay because you want to. Not because you have to. Stay because—" He paused, searching for words. "Because whatever this is between us, you feel it too." I did feel it. That was the terrifying part. "And if I want to leave eventually," I asked quietly, "go back to school, my life, everything I had before?" Pain flickered across his face. Gone so quickly I almost missed it. "Then we'll figure it out," he said. "When the time comes. If the time comes. But Emma..." His hands tightened on my shoulders. "I'm not good at letting go. Fair warning. It should have sounded controlling. Possessive. Red flags waving everywhere. Instead, it sounded like honesty. I need time," I said. "To process this. To figure out what I'm doing." "How much time?" "I don't know. A few days? A week?" I looked up at him. "Can you give me that?" Something like respect crossed his features. "Yes, I can give you that." He pressed a kiss to my forehead, gentle and unexpected. "But you're still mine. Starting now. We're just taking it slow." "Taking what slow?" His smile turned wicked. "Everything else." Heat flooded my face. He laughed a real laugh, warm and genuine, and pulled me into a hug that felt more intimate than the kisses. "You're adorable when you blush," he murmured against my hair. "I'm not adorable. I'm a grown woman. You're adorable and a grown woman. Both things can be true." He pulled back, smoothing down the shirt I was wearing. His shirt. "Keep this. Wear it whenever you want, preferably often." "Why?" "Because seeing you in it does things to me." His eyes darkened. "And I'm done pretending it doesn't." We ate breakfast together after that. Real breakfast, not tense silence and veiled threats. Dante told me about growing up in Italy, about his father's expectations, about inheriting an empire he hadn't asked for but couldn't abandon. I told him about my mother's disappointment when I'd chosen literature over law school, about working 2 jobs to stay in school, about the strange loneliness of being surrounded by people but never quite connecting. It felt surreal, normal, like we were 2 people having breakfast instead of a mafia boss, and his accidental captive turned something else. When Maria came to clear the dishes, she took one look at us, at the way Dante's hand rested casually on my lower back, at the shirt I was still wearing, and smiled. "Finalmente," she murmured. Finally. Dante shot her a warning look, but there was no heat in it. After breakfast, he walked me to the library himself. "I have meetings this afternoon," he said at the door. "But tonight, have dinner with me. Not in your room or the morning room. With me. Properly." "Is that a request or an order?" "With you?" His smile was soft. "Always a request." He kissed me once more, gentle and promising, then left. I stood in the library doorway, touching my lips, trying to understand how my life had turned into this. I was wearing a Mafia boss's shirt. I'd just agreed to be his. And somehow, impossibly, I didn't want to take it off. Dinner was supposed to be at 7. At 6:30, gunfire shattered the evening quiet. I was in my room getting ready. Maria had brought a dress, deep blue and simple, the kind of elegant I'd never owned when the first shots cracked through the air. Distant but unmistakable. I froze with one earring halfway in, my heart stuttering. More gunshots, shouting, the sound of breaking glass. The door to my room flew open. Luca, his gun drawn, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. "Come with me, now." "What's happening?" "Now, Emma." I dropped the earring and ran, barefoot, still wearing the slip I'd put on under the dress. Luca grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the hallway, moving fast. We passed other guards running in the opposite direction, toward the sounds of fighting, down a side staircase I'd never seen before. Through a servant's corridor, he stopped at a heavy wooden door, producing a key and unlocking it in one smooth motion. "Inside, don't come out until Dante or I come get you." "Luca, what's—" "They found out about you. Go." He shoved me through the door and slammed it shut. The lock engaged from the outside. I was in a wine cellar. Dim, cold, rows of bottles on wooden racks disappearing into shadow. A single bulb providing weak light. A panic room disguised as storage. Above me, the sounds of violence continued. More gunshots. Something that sounded like an explosion. Shouting in Italian, angry, desperate, deadly. I sank onto the cold floor, wrapped my arms around my knees, and tried not to imagine what was happening up there. Tried not to picture Dante in the middle of it. Time stopped having meaning. Minutes or hours passed. The sounds faded gradually, fewer shots, less shouting, an eerie quiet settling over the house like snow. I strained to hear anything. Footsteps, voices, some indication of who had won. Silence. I was shaking. From cold, from fear, from the adrenaline crash. The thin slip wasn't enough protection against the chill of the cellar. I hugged myself tighter and waited. When the lock finally disengaged, I scrambled to my feet. The door opened. Dante stood there, and my relief died in my throat. He was covered in blood. Not bleeding, I didn't see any wounds, but spattered across his white shirt, his face, his hands. His expression was hard, cold, the dangerous man I'd seen that first night in the alley. No softness, no warmth, just lethal control. "You're hurt," I whispered. "Not my blood." He stepped aside. "Come." I followed him on numb feet back through the corridors. The house looked like a war zone. Bullet holes in walls, shattered glass, blood on the marble floors, men moving through rooms with grim efficiency, cleaning, assessing damage, bodies being carried out. I looked away. Dante led me to his office and closed the door, shutting out the chaos. Moved to the bar and poured 2 glasses of whiskey, downing one immediately and refilling it. He held out the other glass to me. I took it with shaking hands and drank. The alcohol burned, but it helped. "Sit," Dante said. I sat in one of the chairs facing his desk. He leaned against the desk itself, his arms crossed, his eyes on me. "The Rossi family," he said quietly. "Rival. They learned about the witness from the gala, learned I was keeping someone here. They assumed you were valuable. A leverage point." His jaw tightened. They were wrong. But they tried anyway. "Is it over?" "For now." I sent a message. "It won't happen again." He set his glass down. "But Emma, you need to understand something. This is my life. Violence, threats, enemies who will use any weakness against me. And right now..." His eyes locked on mine. "You're my weakness." The confession hung heavy in the air. "I'm sorry," I said, though I didn't know exactly what I was apologizing for. "Don't be sorry. Just understand." He pushed off the desk and moved to the window, staring out at the darkened grounds. I can protect you. I will protect you. But staying here, being mine, it means accepting that nights like this will happen. That danger is constant, that people will try to hurt you to get to me. Then let me go. The words tasted like ash. If I'm putting you at risk. No, he turned to face me, his expression fierce. You're not leaving, not now. Not when every family in the city knows I'm keeping you. If you leave, you become an even bigger target, someone they can take without facing my defenses. He crossed the room and crouched in front of my chair, taking my hands in his blood-stained ones. You're safest here. With me. Under my protection. That's not fair, I whispered. You're saying I can't leave even if I want to. I'm saying if you leave, you die. His voice was blunt, honest. Is that what you want? No. God, no. I looked at our joined hands. At the blood that was probably soaking into my skin. At this man who'd killed for me tonight, who held my life in his palms like something precious and breakable. I don't know what I want anymore, I admitted. That's fair. He squeezed my hands gently. But for tonight, just stay. Stay here in this room with me. Let me know you're safe. I need to clean up. Change. There's a bathroom through that door. He nodded toward a door in the corner I'd never noticed. Shower, clean clothes in the closet. Take what you need. I stood on shaky legs and walked to the bathroom. It was stark, masculine, black marble and chrome fixtures, minimal decoration. The closet held rows of suits and dress shirts, all in dark colors. I grabbed one of his shirts, navy this time, and turned on the shower. The hot water helped. I stood under the spray until my skin turned pink, washing away the fear and the chill from the cellar. Wrapped myself in a towel and pulled on his shirt, which fell to mid-thigh. When I emerged, Dante had changed too. Black pants, black t-shirt, his hair damp from what must have been a quick rinse in another bathroom. The blood was gone. He looked up when I entered, and something in his expression softened. Better? He asked. Yes. I moved to the couch by the fireplace and sat, tucking my legs under me. What happens now? Now I make sure this doesn't happen again. He joined me on the couch, keeping a careful distance. I call in favors, remind people why attacking my home is a bad idea. Increase security. He paused. And I keep you close. How close? You're moving into my room, he said bluntly. No arguments. You're not sleeping alone on the other side of the house anymore. You stay where I can reach you. My breath caught. Dante, I'm not going to touch you, he said, reading my hesitation. Not until you're ready. Not until you ask. But I need to know you're safe. And right now, safe means next to me. It should have felt controlling, possessive, like another way of keeping me prisoner. Instead, it felt like protection. Okay, I said quietly. He looked surprised. Okay? I don't want to be alone tonight either. It was the truth. The thought of going back to that room, to the locked door and the isolation, made my chest tight with panic. So yes, okay. Relief crossed his features. He reached out and tucked a strand of wet hair behind my ear, his touch gentle. Thank you, he said. For what? For trusting me. After everything. I leaned into his touch without thinking. You've earned it. We sat there in silence, the fire crackling, the sounds of the house being put back together filtering through the walls. Eventually, Dante pulled a blanket from the back of the couch and wrapped it around my shoulders. Rest, he said. I have calls to make, business to handle, but I'll be right here. Promise? Promise. I curled up on the couch, wrapped in his blanket, and watched him move to the desk. Watched him handle his empire with quiet efficiency, speaking in low Italian, making decisions that probably involved violence I didn't want to know about. And somehow, impossibly, I felt safe. I woke to Dante carrying me. Shh, he murmured when I stirred. Just moving you to bed. The bed in question was massive, covered in dark sheets that looked obscenely comfortable. He laid me down carefully and pulled the covers up. Where are you sleeping? I asked, half asleep. Next to you. If that's all right. I nodded and felt the mattress dip as he climbed in on the other side, staying on top of the covers. Dante? I whispered into the darkness. Thank you for protecting me. His hand found mine under the blankets, lacing our fingers together. Always, he said quietly. As long as you're mine, I'll always protect you. I fell asleep holding his hand, wearing his shirt, in his bed, and for the first time since the night in the alley, I didn't have nightmares. I woke to sunlight and an empty bed. For a moment, panic fluttered in my chest. Where was Dante? Was he okay? Had something else happened while I slept? Then I heard water running in the bathroom and relaxed. The sheets still smelled like him, clean and dark and expensive. I pulled the pillow he'd used closer and breathed it in, then felt ridiculous for doing so. What was I becoming? The bathroom door opened, and Dante emerged in a towel, water droplets sliding down his chest. He stopped when he saw I was awake. "Morning," he said, his voice still rough with sleep. I couldn't find words. Just stared like I'd forgotten how language worked. He smiled slightly, the first real smile I'd seen since last night's attack. "You all right?" "Fine. Yes. Morning." I sat up, clutching the sheets. "How are you? How's the house? Is everything—" "Everything's handled." He moved to the closet and pulled out clothes, getting dressed with easy efficiency. "Security's been tripled. The Rossis received my message. We're negotiating terms for the ceasefire." "What kind of terms?" "The kind where they agree to forget you exist, and I agree not to burn their operations to the ground." He buttoned his shirt, watching my reflection in the mirror. Standard Mafia politics. It should have sounded insane. Instead, it just sounded like his life. "Emma," he said, turning to face me. "We need to talk about what happens next." My stomach tightened. "Okay." He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch but not touching. "You can't go back to your old life. Not safely. The Rossis know about you now, and word will spread. Even if we broker peace, there are always others, rivals, opportunists, people who'll see you as a weakness to exploit." He paused. "Staying with me is the safest option." "For how long?" "I don't know. Months. Maybe longer. Maybe—" He stopped himself. "Forever?" I finished quietly. His eyes met mine. "I won't lie to you. Part of me wants that. Wants to keep you here, in my home, where I know you're safe, where I can see you every day. But that's not fair to you." He reached out and took my hand. "So I'm giving you a choice." "What choice?" "Stay. Not as a prisoner. Not as someone I'm protecting because I have to. Stay because you want to. Be with me. Build something real, despite how fucked up the circumstances are." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "Or I'll arrange for you to disappear. New identity, new city, money to start over. You walk away clean, and I make sure no one ever finds you." My heart was hammering. "You'd do that? Let me go?" Pain flickered across his features. "If that's what you needed." "Yes, but you don't want me to." "No." His voice was rough. "I don't want you to. I want you to stay. I want to wake up next to you and fall asleep holding you and see you in my shirts for the rest of my life. But more than that," he cupped my face, "I want you to choose freely, without fear, without feeling trapped. So if you need to leave, I'll let you go." I stared at him, this dangerous man offering me the one thing I'd wanted since the night in the alley. Freedom. And I wasn't sure I wanted it anymore. "Can I ask you something?" I said quietly. "Anything." "Why me? You could have killed me that first night, or kept me locked up indefinitely, or found some other solution that didn't involve—" I gestured helplessly between us. "This. Why did you choose this?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. "Because you looked at me like I was a monster, and instead of backing down, you wore my shirt anyway. Because you pushed back when everyone else would have stayed quiet. Because underneath the fear, I saw fire." He brushed his thumb across my cheekbone. "And because, when you smile, which isn't often enough, it feels like light in a very dark world." Tears burned behind my eyes. "I'm not good, Emma," he continued softly. "I've done terrible things. I'll do terrible things again. I live in a world of violence and power and compromise. I can't change that. Can't become someone safe and normal." His eyes searched mine. "But I can be honest with you. I can protect you. And I can try to give you happiness, even in the darkness. What if I'm not strong enough for this life?" I whispered. You're stronger than you think. You survived the gala. You survived being taken. You survived last night. You're still here, still fighting. He leaned his forehead against mine. And if you choose to stay, I'll make sure you never have to be as strong as I know you can be. I'll carry the weight. You just exist. Be mine. Let me take care of you. It was tempting. So tempting. I need time, I said, to think, to process. How much time? I don't know. A few days? A week? He nodded slowly. Take the time you need. But Emma, his voice turned serious. If you decide to leave, tell me. Don't run. Don't disappear. Give me the chance to say goodbye. I promise. He kissed me then. Slow and deep and achingly gentle. A kiss that tasted like goodbye and hope all at once. I spent the next 3 days thinking. Dante gave me space, but stayed close. We ate meals together, talked about everything and nothing. He showed me more of the house, introduced me to the men who worked for him not as a prisoner anymore, but as someone under his protection, someone who might stay. Maria was thrilled. She started leaving pastries in the morning with little notes in Italian that Dante translated, laughing. Chiara brought me books and sat with me in the library, sharing stories about growing up in the family, about what life was like for women in this world. It wasn't what I'd imagined. It was dangerous, yes, violent, controlled by rules I was still learning, but it was also loyalty and tradition and a strange kind of honor. These people protected their own fiercely, and somehow, I was becoming one of their own. On the 4th night, I found Dante in his office, working late. He looked up when I entered, hope and fear mixing in his expression. Emma, he said quietly, have you decided? I closed the door behind me and walked to the desk. Sat in the chair across from him like I had that first day. I have a question first, I said. All right, if I stay, really stay, what does that look like? Do I go back to school? Get a job? Have any kind of normal life? You can do whatever you want, he said immediately. Finish your degree online or in person with security. Work if you want to, though you won't need to financially. Travel, study, pursue whatever makes you happy. The only rules are the ones that keep you safe. And being with you? What does that mean? It means you're mine, and I'm yours. It means I'm committed to you, to this. For as long as you'll have me. It means... He paused. It means I love you, Emma. I know it's fast and insane and complicated, but I do. And if you stay, I'll spend every day proving it. My breath caught. You love me? Yes. No hesitation, just truth. I stood and walked around the desk. He turned his chair to face me, looking up with those dark, vulnerable eyes. I'm terrified, I said quietly. Of this life. Of losing myself. Of getting hurt. But I'm more terrified of leaving. Of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. I took his hands. So yes, I'm staying. Relief and joy flooded his features. He pulled me down into his lap, cradling me close. You're sure? He asked against my hair. I'm sure. Thank God. He held me tighter. Thank God. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other. The rest of the world falling away. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotion. There's something I need to give you, he said. He pulled open a desk drawer and took out a small box. Not a ring box, something flat. He opened it. Inside was a key. To the house, he said quietly. No more locks on your door. You're not a prisoner, Emma. You're home. I took the key with shaking hands and kissed him. And in that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. 3 months later, I stood in front of the bedroom mirror, adjusting the collar of the shirt I was wearing. Dark gray, expensive, his, the same shirt that had started everything. Behind me, reflected in the mirror, Dante emerged from the bathroom, buttoning his cuffs. He paused when he saw what I was wearing. That shirt again, he said, a smile playing at his lips. Is that a problem? I turned to face him. The opposite. He crossed the room and pulled me close, his hands settling on my waist. You know what it does to me. I'm beginning to figure it out. I looped my arms around his neck. Is that why you haven't thrown it away? Despite threatening to for months? Can't throw away something that looks better on you than it ever did on me. He kissed my forehead. Are you ready for today? Today, my first day back at university, finishing my degree in person, with a security detail shadowing me from a distance. It had taken weeks of planning, background checks on professors and students, secured routes and safe protocols, but Dante had promised me I could have pieces of normal life, and he'd kept that promise. Ready, I said. Nervous, but ready. Luca will be with you. He knows the drill, stay invisible unless there's a problem. You'll be safe. I know. I did know. In 3 months, I'd learned to trust Dante's protection completely. Learned the rhythms of this life, the rules, the hierarchy. Learned that love could exist even in darkness. It wasn't a normal life, probably never would be, but it was ours. Tonight, Dante said, changing the subject, I'm taking you somewhere. Where? Surprise. His eyes held warmth. I'd never seen that first night. Wear something nice. And Emma, he tugged at the shirt I was wearing. Not this. Save this for when we get home. Heat flooded my face. Even after 3 months, he could still make me blush. Deal, I managed. He kissed me properly then, deep and claiming, before pulling away with visible reluctance. Go, learn things. I'll see you tonight. I love you, I said at the door. His expression softened. I love you too. More than you know. University was strange. Walking through campus with a backpack full of textbooks, sitting in a lecture hall, taking notes on romantic poetry, it all felt surreal. Like stepping back into a life that belonged to someone else. But it also felt good. Normal. A reminder that I was still Emma Clark, still a person with dreams and goals beyond surviving. Luca kept his distance, blending into crowds, invisible unless I looked for him, knowing he was there helped. At lunch, I sat in the campus cafe with a coffee and my laptop, catching up on assignments. A girl from my American Romanticism class stopped by my table. Emma, right? You missed a lot at the beginning of the semester. Family emergency, I said, the cover story we'd practiced. I'm catching up. If you need notes, let me know. Professor Reeves is brutal. Thanks. I appreciate it. She smiled and moved on, and I felt a small victory. A normal interaction. A glimpse of the life I'd chosen to keep alongside the life I'd chosen with Dante. Both could exist. I was learning that. Dante picked me up himself that evening, pulling up in a sleek black car that probably cost more than most people's houses. I climbed in, wearing the dress I'd been wearing that night 3 months ago, the one I'd never gotten to wear to our interrupted dinner. You look beautiful, he said. Where are we going? You'll see. He drove us out of the city, into the hills, up winding roads that offered glimpses of lights below. Eventually, we pulled up to a restaurant I'd never heard of. Small, elegant, perched on a cliff, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. Dante, I breathed. This is incredible. Only the best for you. He came around and opened my door, offering his hand. Inside, the host greeted Dante by name and led us to a private table by the windows. Wine appeared without us ordering. Appetizers that looked like art. You didn't have to do all this, I said. I wanted to. He reached across the table and took my hand. We never got our dinner. I'm making up for it. 3 months late. Better late than never. We ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily. Dante told me about a new business deal, legitimate this time, he specified with a smile. I told him about my classes, about the research paper I was planning, normal couple things. Despite the guards outside, despite the gun I knew he carried, despite everything. After dessert, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. My heart stuttered. Don't. It's not what you think, he said quickly. Not yet. Someday, yes, but not tonight. Tonight is something else. He opened the box. Inside was a pendant on a delicate gold chain, simple, elegant, and etched into the metal was a symbol I recognized from around the house, his family crest. It's a protection symbol, he explained quietly. In my world, wearing this means you're under my protection, that anyone who touches you answers to me. I want you to have it, to wear it, so everyone knows you're mine. Possessive words, but from him, they felt like safety. Put it on me? I asked. He stood and moved behind me, fastening the chain around my neck. The pendant settled just below my collarbone, warm from his touch. When he sat back down, his eyes were intense. "Emma," he said quietly, "I know this life isn't what you imagined. I know it's dangerous and complicated, and asks things of you that aren't fair. But I need you to know you make it all worth it. Every risk, every choice. You're the reason I want to build something better." Tears burned behind my eyes. "You make it worth it too. The fear, the changes, all of it. Being with you, it's worth it." He stood and pulled me to my feet, leading me to the windows. The city sparkled below us, vast and full of life and danger and beauty. "This is our world now," Dante said, his arms around me from behind. "Complicated and imperfect in ours. And I promise you I'll spend every day making sure you never regret choosing it." I leaned back against him, my hand coming up to touch the pendant. "I don't regret it," I said. "Not for a second." He turned me to face him and kissed me, soft and deep and full of promise. And for the first time since that night in the alley, I felt completely certain this was where I belonged. We drove home through the darkness, my hand in his, the pendant warm against my skin. When we reached the bedroom, Dante pulled me close. "You know what I want to see you in," he murmured against my ear. "What?" "My shirt, the gray one, only that." I pulled back to look at him, seeing heat and love and that familiar possessiveness in his eyes. "And what happens when I put it on?" I asked. His smile was wicked and warm. "I guess we'll both find out." I changed in the bathroom, pulling on the shirt that had started everything. It still smelled like him. Still fell to mid-thigh. Still made me feel claimed in the best way. When I emerged, Dante was waiting. His expression when he saw me was everything. "Mine," he said softly. "Yours," I agreed. And as he pulled me close, as we fell into bed, still laughing, still learning each other, I wore his shirt and my choice and our future like they were all the same thing, because in the end, they were.